Good evening. Welcome to Arapahoe County's Telephone Town Hall. Tonight, we are joined by Arapahoe County Commissioners Carrie Warren Gully, Jessica Campbell Swanson, Jeff Baker, Leslie Sunny, and Bill Holen. During this call, we'll focus on key areas of county services and our associated funding challenges. We'll give each of our commissioners a few moments to highlight areas of priority as we understand them from recent resident surveys. And we will talk a little bit about the current challenges and priorities for the county. But we also want to hear from you. This telephone town hall is one of a series of several that commissioners have been hosting to solicit resident input on key issues. We will have some time tonight to answer additional questions, and we'll also ask a few polling questions to learn more about what you think is important. There are a few ways you can participate if you want to ask a question. Press *3 to get in the queue if you're on the telephone. Enter a question on the website or listen and participate on Facebook. Now, let's start with Chair of the Arapahoe County Board of County Commissioners, Carrie Warren Gully. Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening, Roger, and thank you everyone for joining us. I'm Carrie Warren Gully, and I'm joined tonight by my four fellow commissioners, as well as Clerk and Recorder Joan Lopez and County Assessor P.K. Kaiser. Thank you for both of you joining us. I know I speak for my colleagues when I say how much we appreciate our residents taking the time to engage in forums like these. These events are so valuable to us as your commissioners, not just because they provide us an opportunity to share how your county is working for you, but they also give us a chance to get your feedback and find out what is most important to you and your family. I think it's probably safe to assume that your participation tonight is driven by your care for Arapahoe County. And trust me when I tell you that we share that same passion. As your commissioners, our primary goal is to make Arapahoe County the #1 place to live, work, and raise a family. We use that goal as a lens through which all of our decisions are made. We invite you to join us for the State of the County, which is coming up on Wednesday, June 7th at the Arapahoe County Fairgrounds. If you'd like to join us in person, you can get tickets online at arapahoecountyeventcenter.com, or you can watch the event online on our Facebook channel. And no, you don't actually have to have a Facebook account to watch. That morning, we'll share some of our successes and talk a little frankly about our funding challenges. Those challenges are front and center for us, and that's why we're here this evening, to talk more about these funding challenges and how they may affect you. As part of those efforts, we recently surveyed our residents to understand your top priorities for us as a county. The results of that survey show us that you care about a number of issues, from repairing, maintaining, and improving infrastructure, and attracting, retaining, and training law enforcement officials, to protecting our children and most vulnerable adults from abuse, and finally, improving access to affordable housing. We agree that these are critically important issues, and we are proud of the work we've done to support them, but we know we have a lot more to do. The challenge? Despite a long record of responsible budget management and good fiscal stewardship, current revenues, coupled with the anticipated growth, will make it difficult for the county to continue meeting the needs of our growing community in these and many other areas. Really, there is no sugarcoating it. Arapahoe County is facing funding challenges in the near future. We are proud of our long record of fiscal responsibility. In fact, Arapahoe County has never asked for a general tax increase to provide vital county services. We've successfully balanced our budget every year, and we have made the most of our resources. But we've come to the realization that this is not sustainable, and we need to do more. I'd like to turn it over now to Commissioner Baker to give you more of the details about the challenges we are facing.
Thank you, Commissioner Warren Gully. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Now, we know that there's a perception that the county has a surplus of revenue, but this couldn't be further from the truth. We were fortunate during the pandemic to see one-time infusions of federal dollars like those of the American Rescue Plan, or ARPA, and the CARE funds. But those funds are drying up. Also, despite recent news about increased property tax assessment rates, it's important to note that Arapahoe County only receives a small portion of that revenue. In fact, the county only receives 13% of your property tax bill. The remaining 87% of tax revenue is distributed to the more than 420 special districts in the county. Special districts like school districts, fire districts, recreation, library districts, as well as to cities and towns. Let me give you an example. If an average home valued at $500,000 has a property tax bill of about $3,400, the county only retains about $430 to provide critical services that you expect, such as public safety and road maintenance. That's a pretty small amount to cover so many good services that are being provided. And because the county adheres to the Taxpayers' Bill of Rights, or TABOR, the county's revenue growth has been restricted in recent years to around 5 to 7% year over year, depending on several factors. It's been 20 years since the county received a voter-approved funding increase. Yet in that time, costs have increased dramatically, as well as the number of services provided by the county. In other words, funding is not keeping pace with demand, and essential services may potentially be at risk in the next few years. We're looking at all funding options and solutions to ensure that we are able to keep the county services you depend on. Back to you, Commissioner Warren Gully.
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. Well, now is the time that we want to hear from you and where you get to participate. What do you think are the county's greatest needs to be addressed in Arapahoe County tonight? Tonight, we'll talk about those issues and what the county is doing about them and more. We will dive in shortly, but first, Roger, let's take our first poll question. And would you please remind folks how to answer a question?
I sure will. Just as a quick reminder, all you have to do is use your telephone keypad to enter the number of your response. If you'd like to ask a question, please press *3 on your telephone keypad. So here is our first polling question. In your mind, which of the following issues should be top priority for the county to address? Please pick one from the following list. Press 1 for repair and improve aging and inadequate infrastructure. Press 2 for preventing abuse of children and vulnerable adults. Press 3 for attract, retain, and train law enforcement officials to improve public safety. Press 4 to enhance mental health support services. Press 5 for improve access to affordable housing. Press 6 for homelessness support. Let me quickly go through those. 1 for aging infrastructure. 2, preventing child abuse and vulnerable adults. 3, attract, retain, and train law enforcement officials. 4, enhance mental health support. 5, improve access to affordable housing. And 6, homelessness support. Please enter your response now. While you're voting, I'll send it back to Commissioner Warren Gully.
Well, thank you for your responses that you'll be providing us, and we're going to provide the results of the poll in just a few minutes. Tonight, we're going to give some updates on the top priorities we heard about from our residents in a recent community survey that we did. At this point, I'd like to turn the mic over to Commissioner Jessica Campbell Swanson. Commissioner, transportation and public works is a focus of yours. Can you tell us a little bit more about what challenges the county is facing currently?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you, Commissioner Warren Gully, for the pass off on that. Yeah, so the county's 5-year infrastructure action plan, which primarily focuses on maintaining existing infrastructure, is historically underfunded by $15 million annually. And I think if I remember the meetings correctly, we've got about $6 million that goes in every year, but we need 15 on top of that for the next 19 to 20 years at least. And that underfunding has resulted in a decline in overall road conditions and greater delayed maintenance costs than is necessary if we were properly funded. So as we are unable to keep up with maintenance and our roads continue to deteriorate, that increases the cost of repairs because it costs 10 times more to repair a deteriorated road and bridge that has reached a condition of poor or very poor than it would be to keep them properly maintained over the years. And here's something that's been giving me some heartburn since becoming a commissioner. The county has a backlog of repairs for vital infrastructure and facilities of over $500 million. Consider the fact that the county's total capital improvement budget is about $13 million, which not only has to pay for roads and also an aging buildings and technology investment, but that's not even to mention increasing bikeability, walkability, and other modes of transit in the county. And for a growing population, this is a daunting proposition. And I don't know if, everybody else knows, but we could have as many as 120,000 new residents by 2030. With our significant infrastructure needs and growing population, there's just, we're really facing an inflection point here. So in 2022, we conducted an assessment of our transportation infrastructure, which yielded concerning results. This report card showed only 60% of county roads were in excellent, good, or fair condition. That means 40% of our roads were labeled poor or very poor condition. And I know, Commissioner, as we've talked, that that's just not a standard that we want our county to be performing at. And as the liaison to Public Works and Development, I know that that's not a standard that they want to be performing at. However, it's not, we've been squeezing money and making things work, but due to funding constraints, our number of roads rated poor or very poor condition have been steadily increasing. We actually just released our report card for our infrastructure and transportation on our website, and people can find that on our website. And it gives a better in-depth kind of look at where we are as a county on some of our infrastructure needs. I'm sure it'll be shared on our social media channels, and I'll be sharing it myself. But all of this to say that while we have been great financial stewards with our growth and everything that we've been having a hard time keeping up with, it seems as though we really do need to look for additional funding sources to address overdue repairs to our infrastructure. And I believe that investing in having well-maintained roads, bridges, and draining systems will pay dividends in the future by avoiding more costly repairs, avoiding increasing costs of repairs, and avoiding the damage to residents' vehicles from potholes and accidents. It's such a funny thing because I think it's something that we take for granted in our county of how great our roads are, and that how much we rely on them. And so to me, it's a real priority of how we get to places and that's not an unenjoyable or costly situation. So I will now as we're talking about different needs, we've all been focusing on slightly different things. And Commissioner Summey, I know, it has been deeply focused on how we make our county a safe and thriving, livable place to be. And so I will pitch it over to Commissioner Summey to talk about some of the things that she's been working on and focused on here in the county.
Thank you, Commissioner Campbell Swanson. And you are so right. We want our county to be thriving and everyone in it to be thriving and sustainable. We heard you, community, loud and clear in our survey, and we absolutely agree that attracting, retaining, and training law enforcement officers is a key concern. We want our law enforcement officers to be the best in the business, ethically and professionally. And in order to do that, we have to be able to attract, retain, and train our law enforcement officers. And that continues to increase. The cost to do that and continues to increase. So in order to remain competitive with similar local government agencies who are seeking the same talent, we have to do something. So while Arapahoe County has a long record of managing the budget responsibly, we've been using our one-time emergency and federal funds to provide critical services over the past few years. With this one-time funding coming to an end, we need to determine how to address paying for the increased cost of these public safety services, specialized equipment, and training to meet best practices. We also want to expand our successful co-responder program to support individuals in crisis instead of sending uniformed officers. Because of budget constraints, we were unable to fund this program last year, despite the important need to do so. So during my meetings with my community, I hear the importance of improving response times, safety within our jail, and addressing rising car thefts and fentanyl use. Those are kind of big issues that are coming from the community. Our residents are not aware of these challenges because the county has done a great job of applying Band-Aids to the problem, making do with existing resources or deferring important projects. But that approach will not continue to work. So we have folks that are saying, hey, we want to have, the safe jail. If you're going to be in it, it's got to be safe. We've got to address the rising car theft, and we've got to address this fentanyl use. So the county is working desperately to make sure that our residents know that, we don't want to continue to apply the Band-Aids. So to continue providing critical public safety services for our residents, we have to identify additional funding sources. And we'll continue to be good stewards. We're good at it, but our current funding structure is not sustainable with our ever-growing community. So with all of that, Roger, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner. If you're just joining us, you're on a live telephone town hall with the Arapahoe County Commissioners. We're talking about your priorities for the county and the need to identify funding sources for them. A few minutes ago, we asked a poll question, and I want to share those results with you. We asked, in your mind, which of the following issues should be a top priority for the county to address? 36% of you said repair and improve aging and inadequate infrastructure. 24% said attract, retain, train law enforcement officials. There's a theme. I think we just covered both of those issues with the commissioners. 12% improve access to affordable housing. 11% said homelessness support. 10% of you voted for enhanced mental health support services. And 7% said preventing abuse of children and vulnerable adults. There are a few ways you can participate. If you'd like to ask a question, press *3 on the phone to get in the queue. If you're participating online, enter your question on the website. And if you're listening or participating on Facebook, you can send us a message through the comment section. Now I'd like to turn things over to Commissioner Jeff Baker, who has spent a great deal of time talking with residents about the county's budget and needs. Tell us what you're hearing, Commissioner.
I sure will, Roger. Thanks for asking. And I want to say thank you to the folks from the eastern part of the county, from Watkins, Byers, Strasburg, and Deer Trail. my district. As I'm out and about in my district, I hear a lot about the need for Arapahoe County to support our most vulnerable residents from abuse and neglect. Unfortunately, as my colleagues have already shared, our current funding realities will make it challenging for us to continue providing the human services support that we have come to know and love here in Arapahoe County, the level of services that our residents expect in this area. The county provides critical support to families and individuals experiencing housing and food insecurity, helping to create pathways out of poverty and toward greater self-sufficiency. Thankfully, we've been able to use these one-time federal funds that I talked about earlier to provide critical services over the past few years. But without an increase in our general fund, these programs simply are not sustainable. For example, with one of the highest eviction rates in the state, the county was able to use one-time federal funds to implement a pilot eviction clinic that has helped 441 households navigate this issue with at least 72% achieving a positive outcome. That's 441 households. That type of program simply can't be continued beyond next year because we lack the funding. The program needs to continue. We just don't have the funding to continue it. As your commissioners, we're tasked with finding solutions to challenges, and we take this requirement very seriously. We're continually looking for additional funds, funding options, grants, anything so that we can continue meeting the needs of our community. Now, we want your input as we move forward, and a lot of you have called in and are ready to ask questions. We're going to be getting to those questions here in a minute. Our goal is to continue providing support for the most vulnerable among us. I know that my colleagues are hearing some of the same feedback from their constituents, and I would love to give my colleague, Commissioner Bill Holen, a chance to share his perspectives. Commissioner, can you talk to us a little bit about what you're hearing?
Thank you, Commissioner Baker. I appreciate your insight and the efforts that you put forth in representing your constituents. Our county is growing, and with growth comes challenges. We want Arapahoe County to be the best place to live, work, and raise a family. And sometimes that means helping the underserved or those down on their luck. Prior to the pandemic, the county did very little to respond or support to individuals experiencing homelessness due to budget constraints. Again, one-time federal funding has enabled the county to work collaboratively with communities to coordinate direct response and provide additional services and navigation. Many of these services are in dire need of ongoing funding that we will not have in the next few years. We have one of the lowest tax rates in the metropolitan area, and that doesn't mean anything if we cannot provide the essential and critical services to represent those who depend upon us. Commissioner Carey, Warren Gully.
Thanks, Commissioner Holen, and thank you again to all of my fellow commissioners for sharing what you are hearing in your communities. We are incredibly thankful to hear from you in our districts, and we take what you say to heart. There is clearly a theme here tonight, as you can see. We have a number of critical priorities in the county, and we have accomplished a lot to support those over the years. But as we grow, we will need to identify funding sources to meet those new demands so that we can provide the level of service that you expect and deserve. Your guidance is important to us as we consider strategies to modernize our funding streams as a county. Some of those strategies may require a voter-approved funding mechanisms to support the priorities we know are important to you. So we want to hear from you and get a sense of areas you would be willing to fund with new resources. So with that, Roger, why don't we do another quick poll of our attendees?
All right, let's do it. Again, to respond to the poll, all you have to do is enter the number of your response on your telephone keypad or click online. Here's that question. Which of the following issues would you be willing to provide additional funding for? Pick one from the following list. Press 1 for homelessness, affordable housing. Press 2 for crime and public safety. Press 3 for roads and infrastructure. Press 4 for mental health. Press 5 for safety net services for those in need, things like food and rental assistance. Again, which of the following issues would you be willing to provide additional funding for? 1 is homelessness, affordable housing. 2 is crime and public safety. 3 is roads and infrastructure. 4 is mental health. 5 is safety net services for those in need. Now, vote now, and I'll toss it back to Commissioner Warren Gully.
Thank you, Roger. And again, thank you all for joining us this evening. We appreciate your time, and we really do value your opinions. So let's go ahead and move on to our first question.
All right, let's hear from Wendy first. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm curious, what is the county doing to address rising property taxes? That's been in the news a lot recently.
Mr. Campbell Swanson, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. That, is such an important question, Wendy. So, and I'm going to tell you that the answer may not be wholly satisfying to you because I think for some people, and not to impugn or assume anything about your knowledge, but just what we've been hearing out in community, people, there's a lot of misperception of where our property taxes go, how much the county gets. So I've got a couple pieces for you here. First, as just a foundational sort of information, not just for you, but for everybody online, most of your tax bill from property taxes goes, 87% of it, in fact, goes to fund other local governments like the school districts, the municipalities, your cities, fire districts, libraries, special metro districts, and recreation districts. That means we only get 13% of what's on that property tax bill, which is about $430 for the average home. And we make that stretch as far as we can. So another piece of that is that your tax bill already includes a temporary tax reduction from the county because of our adherence to TABOR, which restricts the county's revenue growth. So even though we've had residents experience property valuation increases and therefore tax increases of 30, 40% is what we're looking at, the county really is not getting much of that at all because A, most of that is going to other districts, and B, we're capped through TABOR. And even if we weren't capped through TABOR, in terms of what our caps are, that reduction is, we're almost at our cap anyway. So that temporary property tax relief is as far as kind of what we can do right now already. If people on the call are worried about their property valuation, our assessor, PK Kaiser, has gone above and beyond to make property valuation protests very accessible and easy to do. So if somebody is interested in that, they can go to arapahoegov.com/assessor, and they can, at the pretty close to the top of the page there in the information is a link that takes you to instructions to protest your property valuation. The assessor has also made dates available for in-person workshops, kind of open houses, and I think some of them have passed, but there might be one more that's still available, and that is also on Assessor Kaiser's website as well, which again is arapahoegov.com/assessor. The other thing that we're looking at is we're looking at the overall economy. People want to move to Colorado and Arapahoe specifically, and we are experiencing incredible growth. And so one of the things that we're looking at is increasing access to housing by increasing our housing stock. And there's a lot of different mechanisms that we're looking at of how to do that. But basically that demand is part of what's driving up the values of our housing. So we believe by increasing housing stock, we will be able to help stabilize some of our increase in property valuation. And I think there was another question, Roger, from another person online who said, you asked, why is the county in a funding crisis when my property taxes continue to go up? And I hope that that person got their question answered by the information that we only get 13% of these property taxes. And that is about an average of $430 per home. I will also say that it's an interesting thing that I've been kind of getting into the depths in as a new commissioner. But we, our growth has been, yes, while commercial, also largely residential, and the taxes on that don't pay in the same to an equivalent ratio to what that growth costs. So, we are looking at different funding mechanisms for those kinds of growth to make development pay for itself, but that's a little bit part of why the county is still in a funding crisis, even though property values are going up. It's a tough issue, and there's a lot involved, and we're going to just keep working on it. So thanks for the question, Wendy, and for pitching it to me, Roger. Back to you.
All right. Thank you very much. Here are the results of our second polling question. We asked, which of the following issues would you be willing to provide additional funding for? 35% of you said crime and public safety. 30% said roads and infrastructure. 15% of you, homelessness and affordable housing was a top priority. 14% for safety net services. 6% for mental health. We appreciate your input on that. If you're joining us late, you are on a live telephone town hall with the Arapahoe County Commissioners. We do want to hear from you. To ask a question, please hit *3 on your phone, and we will get you in the queue. We have about 25 minutes left, so we're going to go through and try to get to as many of your questions as possible. When I call you up, please try to be as brief as you can so we can get to as many people as possible. Let's hear next from David. Go ahead.
Dave, yes, I have a few questions. It's a multi-part question. The county assessor is only sent out postcards, not comps with their latest notification. I find fault with that, number one. Number two, the county has taken on many things that they shouldn't be taking on. One is affordable housing and other social issues that are best left to the state. I'm not sure why this county is taking on more issues instead of fewer issues as funding decreases.
Commissioner Warren Gully, would you like to respond?
Yes, David. Thank you very much for your question, and that's partly why we're having this conversation with our community this evening. We have been having multiple conversations out in our community outside of this, as well as some surveying to find out what the priorities of the community are. And of course, we get that feedback from a lot of different people, not only our residents who may work outside of our community, but residents who live and work in here, as well as business owners, chambers, hospitals, all sorts of different people in our community. So what I would say is that you've heard this evening of what the priorities are that we're finding from a lot of our community, and they align quite well with what the priorities of our county commissioners are. And you bring up a very good point, David, that we try to figure out what is the state responsible for and how do they do their work in partnership and conjunction with the cities and the counties who are partners in our work as well. So one of the number one things that we hear from our community that, of course, is a huge priority for us is our infrastructure, which you heard Commissioner Campbell Swanson speak to, and the fact that we're about $500 million in projects behind. We believe in maintaining our current infrastructure. We are not building new. We are maintaining what we currently have outside of road projects that require our growth and new infrastructure. We're also doing things internally, for example, a space study, where we're taking a look at our space and what we're using now that we're becoming more of a hybrid workforce. I will say that one of our focus areas, as well as the focus area of many in our community, is housing. And you are right, that is a big partnership. That's a partnership not only with our business community, who does market-based housing and building, but it's also a partnership with many of our businesses that have or folks that work for them. So, for example, our school districts and our hospitals that employ teachers and nurses who are not able to work where they live. They have to come to our community to work and drive home to someplace else. So even though the state may have some work in that area, that is clearly the work that we do in partnership with our cities through our land use codes, as well as working in partnership with our community. Obviously, public safety, which you've heard quite a bit about this evening, and protecting some of our most vulnerable our most vulnerable residents. And we do that in partnership as well with our community of nonprofit providers and faith-based communities. So I hope that gives you a feel for the priorities that we've set forward and in working with our community to make sure that we're aligned.
Thank you. Let's hear next from Whitney. Go ahead. Whitney, you are live. Go ahead. All right. I think we've lost Whitney. Let's go next and hear from Sue. Sue, go ahead.
Hello, this is Sue. And I had a question about, I keep hearing these messages about you all saying there's a funding issue, there's a funding issue, there's a funding issue. But why can't you use what you currently have? Why can't you use the current funds of the county?
Hi, yeah, thank you, Sue. This is Jeff Baker, Commissioner Baker. Let me try to answer that question. There just is simply not enough funds to keep up with the costs. Just like an individual household, I'm sure you're experiencing the high cost of gasoline, the high cost of food, the high cost of just living day to day. The county is not unlike a family suffering from these inflationary costs. The only difference is a matter of scale. So the cost for us to buy asphalt for our roads, steel for our buildings, the cost of labor has all gone up, and these costs are impacting the county just like a family is experiencing the costs. So why doesn't the amount of funding that we have coming in covering that? We've had to increase our services. I know the caller just before had an opinion about whether the county should be involved in affordable housing or helping the homeless. That was a problem that has grown over many, many years, and it's going to take many, many years to solve. The use of the one-time federal funds that we received through ARPA and CARE funding went towards that. But those problems have not gone away. The homeless problem is still out there. And so we have additional services that were required. And again, a home worth $500,000 is only contributing $430 a year to all of those many services that we're talking about. Public safety, our sheriff's office, the jail, snow removal, road maintenance, the human resources caseworkers protecting the most vulnerable. So we have, again, that $500 million worth of deferred maintenance that we were hoping that better times would come and we would be able to address that deferred maintenance. We can only allocate $6.3 million annually from those funds to address capital projects. And that's not enough to even make a dent in the backlog. So I hope that answers part of your question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Rebecca, you are next. Go ahead.
Hello. My question was, why are you running your little polling things where you only give the choice to one of the issues ahead of us? You know, it would be much better if you had an option to add more than one or to choose all or to rank them. So, because all of these are very important issues. And I'd like to see it being ranking on what we would actually like to see, you know, from 1 to it's either 5 or 6, I forget at this point. And that, you know, that's probably going to go now to your next town hall instead. I doubt you can switch that around.
Mr. Thummey, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question. Could you repeat it for me?
I think she was just asking, she would just like to be able to support funding for more than one of the priorities.
Oh, I love that. And so you're only allowed to pick one response? Is that what I'm hearing? One response on the survey?
That's correct.
Aha. Well, unfortunately, my guess is that's a technological issue and the way the system is set up. However, I would love it if we could find a system that the next town hall we have, because we are in community and we have people that have great ideas, I would love it if we would be able to come up with a system that would allow us to choose more than one. You know, great minds think alike, and if we get all those ideas out there, we can only be better for it. But that is what I think it is. It's a technological thing, and the system, the platform that we are using only allows us one answer.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Let's go to Brett next. Brett, go ahead.
Hearing the same message everyone else is, right? Not the county doesn't have enough funds, and you know, despite the fact that our property taxes continue to go up. But I'm struggling with this. You know, I listened to your town hall last night. I think it was Commissioner Campbell Swanson who hosted that and was kind of giving an overview of the county operations. It was very interesting. But you know, my takeaway from that conversation was that the county has plenty of funds to do things like invest in therapy dogs for the sheriff's office and to provide best-in-class benefits for county employees. Look, I got nothing against therapy dogs. I'm glad county employees have decent benefits, some of which are better than what I get at my own job, by the way. But how do you reconcile the ability to fund those things with asking for more?
Hey, Roger, I'll take this one since Brett referenced me. I thank, first of all, Brett, for tuning in to my town hall. That was my first one, so very exciting. And I hear you on those things. So one of the things that's interesting about our budget is there are a bunch of different funds. So there's 27 different funds. And those dollars are restricted in where they can go. So that is part of one of the constraints, right? If we were able to pool everything together and whatever, maybe we would have some more flexibility, but we don't have that flexibility. Second, Arapahoe County works off of what's called a baseline budgeting process. So previous to my time on the board, we had what was, I guess, the board would increase the department's budgets by, on average, 4% per year. And they would kind of go, okay, this is how we want to grow. This is what we want to do, X, Y, Z. As of 2006, the board fixed that baseline. So our department and the county has been working off of a baseline budget as of 2006. And when departments want to grow or do something new, they have to, argue for that funding, which is, they're kind of making cases for not a lot of money after you just do that baseline based on the revenue increase from property taxes. I'm not going to pretend like they haven't increased, but the needs are growing, right, as you have heard. So when you're talking about therapy dogs, fun fact, and ironically, like I just happen to know this, there have been grants, but also one of my friends from back home does the breeding, and they raise money from the community of like charity kind of sometimes to be able to pay for the breeding and grooming of the therapy dogs, right? There's also other funds. So our school districts funnel money into and pay for our sheriff's department, that kind of thing. So sometimes special projects, that's an example, but sometimes special projects, our departments get specific grant funding. B, our departments or offices are getting funding from other districts, which is great. And then 3, sometimes literally we're able to do things because other members of the community are finding a way to help make that happen. I heard you say we're not, going to talk about the merits of therapy dogs, although I think safety in schools and mental health and all of that we can agree is very important. Then you talked about benefits, right? One of the priorities of us is we're not just a service provider, we are also an employer. And the more we take care of our staff, the better of a job they will do working for you all. I happen to believe, as you heard me say last night, that the county is a great place to work. At the same time, we have even been struggling to keep retention of our employees because other municipalities and county governments who do not have the same fiscal restraints as us are increasing their salaries and benefits and poaching our very well-trained employees. And so not only do we think it is an important value to take care of our employees, we also think of it as a value in retaining our employees because, as you know, as I think most people understand that, retention helps save costs over time, right? All of that then to say that I hope I've set up sort of the picture for you that you see we are not, first of all, we are just straight up just not flush with cash when it comes to what our budget is. We run a very tight budget based on a baseline budget of every year, and our departments and offices have to argue and kind of work for additional funds to fund the growing needs of a growing population and a growing population with increased needs. On top of that, every single thing we do has a direct function. And I understand that some people think that, mental health or affordable housing or different things that we are working on and wanting to do and where we have been able to address with one-time ARPA funds are maybe outside of the traditional narrow scope of how people have seen the county role. However, the reason we have had to fill those gaps is because those gaps existed. If the state did, a comprehensive unhoused program that really worked across the state, then we wouldn't have had to leverage our ARPA and one-time funds to fill and create those programs. the state is no more flush with cash per se than we are. Talking with our legislators, there were all sorts of excruciating budget cuts and bills that didn't get passed because of their fiscal impact, even though there are community needs. So I think, I hope that painted a picture that showed you the constraints of our budget, while also the things that we're doing are important and are serving a need to help us serve our residents and meet their needs, where other levels of government or charities or nonprofits, et cetera, are not doing it. And I think that's one thing that makes me very proud to be part of this county organization, is that we step up and lead and meet needs, and we're willing to put ourselves out there to do that. And really what we're talking about here are genuine needs that are happening in the community that need to be addressed, and that the funding that we have right now is not sufficient to meet those needs. And Brett, if you tuned into my town hall and et cetera, I'm happy to have another meeting with you. I put my email up last night, and it's on our website here, so we can dig into this. I don't want to take too much time as we're running out of time here, but I hope that it addressed the question, and a question that it seems like a lot of folks are having here.
Okay, let's hear next from Suzanne. Go ahead.
Thank you, commissioners, for all your hard work in trying to stretch this budget. My question is about the Tabor cap. Other districts, other counties around our state have taken off the Tabor cap. My understanding is Arapahoe County has not debruced or taken off that cap. I want to know, if we did vote, the citizens would have to vote to take it off, how much money would that bring into our county to help our budget?
Commissioner Warren Gully?
Thank you, Suzanne. This is Carrie Warren Gully, and I appreciate the question. We are one of the few counties still in the state that are restricted by the Tabor Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and so basically our current mill levy is set at a little over 15 mills. And every year, our finance department does a calculation on what our estimated growth will be and growth of our collections on our property taxes. And what they do then is, if we see that we are going to be collecting above those restrictions, we then lower the mill levy rate. So currently our mill levy rate is right around 13 mills, and everybody in the county is receiving a temporary reduction in your mill levy. And that means that this year we were not able to use, due to our Tabor cap and the restrictions around the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, we were not able to use $43 million that would have gone to start working on and fixing some of our infrastructure needs, working on building up our public safety to deal with the more complex and extensive needs of our law enforcement officers, as well as the other priorities that our community has outlined for us. So thank you, Suzanne, for the question.
Thank you. Let's hear from Todd next. Todd, go ahead.
Yes. Well, my question was, as far as the affordable housing, it seems that one piece that could be done at little to no cost to the county would be to increase housing inventory by zoning or other options to increase the availability of high density housing. Are there any plans to do that?
Thank you, Todd. This is Commissioner Baker again. Hey, yeah, there are plans. We're looking at our land development code and looking at ways that we can increase density. Accessory dwelling units is one of those things that our Planning Commission is going to be taking up if they haven't already. I know that was something that would allow in lots of certain size to have an accessory dwelling unit. Build over a garage, put a mother-in-law apartment kind of thing, carriage house, those sorts of things. Yes, increasing density definitely will increase the stock. There are arguments about whether that actually helps affordability or not, or does it create gentrification. There are different thoughts about that, but we definitely know that what's within our limit and what's in the state's ability to do. Of course, there was legislation this last legislative session that wanted to kind of take away the local control from controlling the density in neighborhoods. And municipalities and counties have spent a lot of time creating the culture and the ambiance of their individual neighborhoods. So, yeah, there are a lot of things that could be done. We can always do more, but it is in the process. Thank you for your question.
All right, we have 4 minutes left or so. Commissioner Warren Gully, do you want to kick off final comments?
Well, thank you very much, Roger. And I want to say thank you again to everyone who attended this evening and asked some very thoughtful questions that I think you see that we wrangle with every single day, not only by ourselves, but with our staff and in partnership with a great many partners, including our cities, municipalities, our school districts, our nonprofit partners. It really does take everybody coming together to tackle some of these very, very difficult issues and complex issues that we face today. As I said, I'd like to thank Clerk Recorder Lopez and Assessor Kaiser for joining us this evening. And thanks to my fellow commissioners. And thank you again, mostly to our community for the conversation and the thoughts that you have shared with us this evening.
All right. Which commissioner would like to go next on final comments? Oh, I guess I'll bring it home then, I'm told. On behalf of all of the Arapahoe County Commissioners, we really appreciate and thank you for joining us tonight. I know we're up against the Nuggets, and we were told not to share the results in case any of you are caping it and wanting to go watch it. We hope you'll join us at a future telephone town hall, either the countywide ones or visit and join a commissioner town hall in the future. On behalf of everyone on the call tonight, thank you and good night.